Hello, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
Can you please say something about chemtrails?
Something about chemtrails.
Can you please give us some information about chemtrails? Because there's a lot of people interested in exactly what they are.
I know. Some of that information is no longer appropriate to come through this terminal. We have changed our frequency about what types of information we will deliver to your planet, and some types of information are simply no longer appropriate for the vibrations of change that are going on. Nevertheless, obviously they are artificial constructs. Some of them have to do with the idea of experimentation in weather alteration, and that is all we are allowed to say at this time, because it is simply not part of our repertoire at this moment through this particular terminal.
Okay, thank you.
Remember, we are a hybrid species based on your genetic material. So we're not that dissimilar, except that we are now in our evolutionary state much farther along and closer to the idea of non-physicality. So many things we used to do, we no longer do. We no longer eat, we no longer sleep, we no longer drink.
Will human civilization reach that point on Earth?
Yes, eventually, in about 1,000 of your years.
For those who don't know who or what that thing is speaking, that supposedly is an entity named Bashar that is channeled by a person named Darryl Anka. Apparently this entity can be channeled by anybody or other people, but the main channel that information comes through is this individual named Darryl Anka. I came across this information about 12 years ago, and when I first heard it, I was hooked. It was refreshing, it was new, it seemed spot on. Intuitively, I felt like this was information to be trusted. And even to this day, there's information that is shared by this energy, whatever it is, that I feel is relevant to some degree. The only thing is that there was always something missing. It always felt a little off center. And that little bit of being off centered is what always kept my antennas up, because when you are speaking to masses of people, when you're speaking that kind of information to masses of people, and then when you carry on saying that you shouldn't pay attention to certain information, saying that to masses of people, that's when the intuitive holdback that I had starts to get a little more color to it. And I started to realize that there were specific topics, perspectives, angles that both Darryl Anka and Bashar were adamantly staying away from. Now, this isn't just me talking about this subject from just watching videos. I've seen these channelings, so-called channelings, in person on more than one occasion. I was even called to ask questions. The first name out of the hat called to ask questions. And my question was pretty much shut down, blocked in so many different ways. But my perspective on this is not something that I take lightly. I was fully vested in this information. I shared this information with friends of mine. It was a whole thing. I've been around Darryl when he was having conversations with people. I spoke with him before. It was a whole thing. And to this day, it just never sat right with me. I've made multiple videos. They're linked in the description. YouTube removed one of them that wasn't even an issue. Bashar or Darryl had another one removed. And the reason why I'm making this video right now is because that production company, Darryl Anka's production company, was very, very strict about keeping videos off of YouTube that they were not uploading themselves. Because I had shared the video that I saw in person on my channel and it was removed. So once I saw that not only did they not want to talk about certain subjects, they don't want you to talk about certain subjects, but they don't want too many people paying attention to exactly what this individual is saying outside of their little self-contained environment with these channelings and videos that you can purchase on your own, but you can't put it anywhere else for other people to see. Once I started to see that that was a thing, that's when I started to just pull away. I didn't need to do anything else other than that. I pulled away, and then I would revisit every now and again to see what this thing was saying on certain subjects. Recently, coming across this video, I've seen that they're allowing more than 1-minute clips to be uploaded to YouTube. Maybe they just didn't catch this one. I don't know. But anyway, I felt it necessary to comment on this subject again, being that this information is somewhat new and might be new to some people, and is very much something to look at, being that this approach to certain information, perspectives, is very relative to the Terrence Howard approach to what's going on, in that there's this idea of a higher vibration type of information that in many ways is more relevant, and on the backhanded side is making whatever subjects that they don't pay attention to irrelevant. Not only irrelevant, but dangerous and not worth your time. There's a whole community based upon this. That community has this same sentiment. It has this same approach towards information. This information that I've recognized is very specific. These entities focus on, speak in more ways than one on these perspectives that are, in their words, a low vibration. This lower vibration type of information or perspective is always connected to a particular community, a particular people. In their community, these perspectives and largely these people are not there. So their perspectives cannot be shared. Their information is dismissed, deflected, downplayed. And what I'm saying is that angle of approach towards these supposed low vibration perspectives is supported and even amplified by these individuals like Darryl Anka and his channel Bashar. And what I'm saying is even people like Terrence Howard. The connection here is that in these communities, these new age communities, the focus of these communities is largely on things, stuff, to keep your attention. So a good example of this is the flower of life, sacred geometry, platonic solids. These are all very relevant perspectives to have a knowledge of, but they are not perspectives to base your entire life upon. You can become enveloped in this, and as Terrence Howard was mentioning, it becomes a loop. The information becomes a loop. Your perspective becomes a loop. Your intuition starts to get manipulated into a loop. You start to defend an idea. And these channelers, when Bashar says something like, I cannot speak on that perspective any longer, it is of a vibration that we no longer support. What is he implying? He is implying that we don't speak on that because I am of a higher vibration. If you want to speak on that, that is because you are of a lower vibration. What is that also saying? Anybody else who has questions of that perspective is also of a lower vibration. What information would be lower than that vibration that they also don't speak on? Enter in your racism discussion, historical information that we need to deal with that's still affecting us today in this moment. These are the implications that come along with being presented in public on a mass scale. It might be a small community, but it is a mass scale. This information is available to anybody. When you speak such deep perspectives and knowledge about what's going on, you, first of all, you attract people. So you gather a following, and there's a responsibility there. So when you gather that following and completely dismiss an entire library of relevant information, and then tell people that they also should not even entertain that information. Not only not entertain that information, don't even entertain the people who speak on that information. They should not be relevant. They should be dismissed, as they are dismissing the individual who have those questions in that seminar, because they are of a lower approach, a lower vibration. Why I'm connecting this to Terrence Howard is because this is also what Terrence Howard is doing in many ways. The Flower of Life is heavy in the New Age community. Sacred geometry, platonic solids, particularly surrounding around the Flower of Life, it becomes a thing. It becomes a channeling. It becomes this information that in many ways becomes worshipped. Once minds that are young, moldable, open, wanting, they need something, once they become attracted to and eventually attached to this information, they become part of this bubble, a loop, a self-contained environment that once you just start to repeat those circles of information, once you hit that wall and you just repeat what the channeler said, then not only can you just move on to the next subject, but you can dismiss the subject that's being brought to you. And that's what I'm saying is very dangerous. And that's why I pulled away from that community and from individuals like Darryl, Anka, and so-called channeling like Bashar. Because each and every one of these channels have this same approach. They claim to be a future version of you, meaning a higher vibrating version of you, a more evolved version of you. So there's a connection to you. You have to believe that. There's no way they can prove that. You have to also believe, if you believe that they are of a higher vibration. And if you believe that, you also believe what they don't want to talk about. So if they don't want to talk about what you're dealing with in the streets of East Oakland, then that means that they are labeling that information, that approach, those people as lower vibration. And since they spent 3 hours riffing on information, that information must be high vibrating information. And if I want to raise my vibration, which is what all these people are going to these meetings and channelings for, if they want to raise their vibration, they have to focus on the information that the channel is focusing on, and not focus on the information that the channel doesn't focus on and doesn't want you to focus on. So what gets missed? Entire communities of people who can't help but not only focus on this information, but live this information. It creates a divide. It creates a separation. It creates we're a higher vibrating group over here and you're a lower vibrating group over there. There is nothing higher vibrating about that kind of approach. This is what these individuals, these entities are doing. This is why in those previous videos that I published, I went to the depths of explaining this perspective and how detrimental it is to not only the individual, but masses of people. And stumbling upon this recently uploaded video, I'm seeing that nothing has changed. In fact, it's gotten even worse. So like the chemtrail discussion, what they will also not speak about is information like racism, stuff that we're dealing with that's not in their community. Point being is that not so much that, oh, they don't talk about what we want to talk about. The point is, what is it that they want you to talk about and focus your energy on? Because there is something specific there. Yes, it is bad that they don't want you to speak on or pay attention to certain things. That's one story, though. The other story is, what exactly do they want you to focus on? And that's where all of this very manipulative information starts to come into view. This loop inducing information starts to become real, and it can affect people to where they do not allow themselves to get out of that loop, and it can be very dangerous. This is what the entire New Age community is based upon, keeping people in these loops. If the New Age community had something that at its core was some sort of universal approach to what we're all dealing with, they wouldn't be dismissing certain approaches, certain information that are relevant to people living right now. They wouldn't dismiss entire communities of people only to focus on the high vibrating ones. But they do in individual channels and entire communities. So what do they want you to focus on? They want you to focus on them, because they do not exist unless you give them that energy to exist. In my videos, I took it as far as saying that these entities, these so-called channels, are part of an AI program that is not relevant to our best case scenario and where we are right now. But in fact, that information, that entity is skewing our approach, giving it the benefit of the doubt. From my research, that entities and entities like that are manipulating large groups of people, people with power, people with influence, manipulating them to affect timelines, to affect movement, consciousness in a way that benefits their present timeline. Like I said, giving them the benefit of the doubt. If this entity is 800 years in the future, it's this, it's that, it seems alive, it's saying it knows all this information. When you get into that type of vibration, that supposed higher vibration, you are held to a higher standard. If you're saying that you're 800 years in the future and that you're this high vibrating being, you can't have these slip ups. You got to have something more than, oh, I just can't speak on that perspective because it's not our lane anymore. And how could this entity not know that that kind of approach is also affecting people? People are basing their approach to certain subjects off of the way the entity, the channel, is approaching these subjects. And they don't say that. The entity doesn't say, oh, we don't speak on that information, but you should figure that out for yourself. What they're implying is that we don't speak on that information, and you also should not speak on that information. Why? Because it's of a lower vibration. And if you want to be like us, evolved beings, you need to speak on higher vibrating perspectives. Terrence Howard, going on to the Joe Rogan podcast, speaking on the flower of life and sacred geometry and platonic solids and all that, that whole approach is very similar to a channel's approach. Why? Because this individual had the opportunity to do so much with that platform. And he chose to focus that energy on what? Another loop. And even if it's not just a loop, it's something personal. He's talking about what he invented, what he patented, what he's trying to produce on this technological scale, his mathematics that he came up with. It's all about him. Yes, he's saying that it's for humanity, but it's all about him. You can't take away from that from listening to his interview and his interviews. It's always been about him. And if you have power, you have influence, you have the resources to speak on certain issues on a large scale, and you get on that, and you only speak about yourself, you are now a liability. You had that opportunity, and you made it all about you. This is what happens in the New Age community. They play like they're for the world, for human consciousness, for the greater good. But when it comes down to certain groups of people that don't look like them, don't act like them, don't speak like them, don't think like them, don't see the world like them, for some reason, that group of people doesn't fit in the collective discussion. And that's something that irritated the hell out of me when I was living in that community. Because that's how it felt. That's how it is. Your perspectives coming from how you grew up, they're irrelevant. They don't matter. What your family is dealing with doesn't matter. It's their journey. It's those people. It's their vibration. They're allowing these things to happen because they have power. They have influence. They have resources. And they channel all those resources back into loops. The loop with sacred geometry and the flower of life is that, yes, it's a math. Yes, it's a science. Yes, it's something relevant to the nature of this reality. Is it relevant in the grand scheme of things? Is it relevant to the people who inhabit this experience? That perspective cannot be justified without also including a belief system in that approach. Channelers and channeling require a belief system. The New Age community requires a belief system. Sacred geometry and science on that scale doesn't necessarily require a belief system, but when you put extra onto it and try to sell it as something bigger than what it is, that becomes a belief system. This is what Terrence Howard is selling. This is what he's doing. This is what the New Age community does. This is what these channelers do. And when you sell that belief system, you have to sell anti-belief systems. And when you sell that belief system, you are selling other people out who don't fall under that belief system. And this is what's happening to people, what I say, are on the ground level. Because these people in these New Age communities and who are stuck in these sacred geometrical loops have completely uprooted themselves. They are no longer on the ground. They have no connections to us because they have artificially raised their vibration away from us through their own belief systems. And these belief systems are maintained by channelers. They're maintained by New Age speakers like Terrence Howard. No different than how they are maintained by people who believe in the political system, thinking that the politics is going to save you. In the New Age community, they think alien politics are going to save them. Extraterrestrial presidents are going to save them. On smaller scales, they think sacred geometry itself is going to save them. It's not the answer. It's not the end-all be-all. This is what's being sold to people, and it's very dangerous. I've seen it firsthand. I've experienced it. I've lived it, and it only goes so far. It's not the answer. There is no the answer. There's a mass of perspectives that are going on right now. There are belief systems, and there are people and entities who are taking advantage of masses of people through belief systems. And they have to be pointed out. They have to be recognized for who and what they are. Bashar, channelers, Kryon, Abraham Hicks are no exception. Terrence Howard is no exception. He's had more than one opportunity to speak on subjects that are very relevant on a larger scale. He's chosen to speak on the subject he's chosen. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that he should speak on what I'm speaking on. He is speaking on exactly what he thinks is relevant and needs to be spoken on. And if he's choosing to do that, then he also needs to deal with how people see that. No different than these channelers who are saying information, saying things that are relevant, that are of a higher vibration. Well, they need to answer for that. And what I'm saying, the main point of what I'm saying is that the days of implying that we are of a lower vibration because of our experience, because this is what they're implying. Someone born in a supposed low vibrating environment, say West Oakland, California. Someone born there, raised there, lived there, grew up, got a job, went to school, still lives there. They're dealing with everything that we have to deal with every day in that environment. Why are they of a low vibration? Why is their experience irrelevant to supposed high vibrating beings? How have you become higher than them when they have done nothing but be born in that environment? What makes you so much more important than them? This is no different than religious people saying that you're not relevant unless you're saved. They're going to hell because they're not saved like us. This is no different than the New Age community throwing people in lower vibrating environments under the bus because they're not privy to this sacred geometry flower of life information. They're of low vibrations. They should stay there. That's their journey. That's their choice. This is what these channelers are saying. In real time, is happening right now. Communities are based upon this. You can get in your car and drive to Sedona, Arizona right now, have a conversation with somebody in the coffee shop about this subject, and they will tell you, you will see this shit firsthand. In more than one ways, you will see this. And I've been talking about this subject for years now, over a decade now. And I'm dumbfounded, astonished that this subject is still not being spoken on. And there's so much to speak on it. And there's so many people who've gone through it. But what I'm seeing is, what I've noticed, the people who do speak on this are ones who have gone through the New Age community, but before they went into the New Age community, they had a deep religious background. If it wasn't their religious background personally, it was their family's religion or somebody close to them, their religious background. And what they did is that they ran away from that religious background, ran into the New Age community. When they hit the walls of the New Age community, jumped back out of the New Age community and dove headfirst off a diving board straight back into the religious community, more specifically, the Christian religious community, and now have a responsibility to speak out against the New Age community because now they're sharing their story. And that's what I've seen on YouTube in many different ways. But this is what I'm saying is part of the intention of the New Age community. It's meant to be a loop. It's meant to be a wall because it bounces you right back. It either keeps you in that loop or it bounces you back into what you're comfortable with. And largely, people are going to be comfortable with what their family is comfortable with. Because what happens is a lot of people go into these New Age communities, they don't have anything. They try to live in that community, they can't anymore. What they do is they leave that community, go back to their family. In order to stay in their family, they become part of the old programs again. And one of the main big old programs is the religious program. They start to feel this love, joy, happiness, sense of self, connection with God. And it feels more real to be a part of a church, a part of a community. So they dive back into their religion because it's safe, because it's comfortable, because it's more real to them than that fake ass shit that they were experiencing in the New Age community. But just because you have a bag of dried up dog shit compared to a bag of diarrhea dog shit doesn't make it any less dog shit. Maybe you just can't smell it, doesn't look as bad. It's still dog shit. But again, now you're in a religious loop, a religious belief system. Instead of aliens, extraterrestrials, blue avians, the Intergalactic Federation of Light, instead of that you have Jesus. Bashar and these channelers like Kryon and Abraham Hicks are very much pawning off this identity of being, if not being like Jesus, being a disciple of Jesus, a homie. They're cut from the same cloth. They just don't have the religious connections to it. This is why in these New Age communities, this kind of information, this kind of approach is very attractive. In particular, the demographic is older so-called white people. Either older so-called white people or younger so-called white people. In between, the ages in between, late 20s, 30s, that's when either the younger generation of New Agers start to grow out of it or leave, or the other demographic of people are just working. They're caught in something that they're already doing. So you either have new kids, brand new kids who don't have anything to grab onto, jump into the New Age community through channels like the Flower of Life, Sacred Geometry, coming across that information online. Or you have retired, old school, old hippies who've been in that community and stay there, who are also having a revamping of their life, looking for something new that validates what they've already, the goodness of their heart, the goodness of their nature that they've been for their entire lives. I hit that information in my late 20s, like right in my early 30s. So I had already had my antennas reinforced. I could see bullshit a mile away. I could see bullshit coming my way. And that's how I had my scopes when I was entering into the New Age community. I was very much enveloped in that space, but I never allowed it to take me over. Because it was just stuff. And not only that, it was stuff along with a side dish of dismissal. I didn't see my family. I didn't see my community. I didn't see my people being acknowledged in this discussion. I didn't see their story being referenced. In fact, I saw it being swept away, swept under the rug, dismissed, deflected upon, just like all the other stories, all the other communities have done in the past and even in the present. And that was a red flag that hasn't gone away. A red flag that's still standing strong right now in the video that I shared in the beginning of this video. And if you want to see what Terrence Howard and people like Terrence Howard are going to bring to the discussion, to the table in the future, research the New Age community, research these channelers, and you'll see what kind of loops these people are getting ready to jump into. Terrence Howard already has hundreds of thousands of people jumping into these New Age loops as I speak right now. Millions of people listening to that podcast. Millions of people listening to his other speeches, talks at Oxford University. He's got the credibility of Oxford. Nobody, just regular people, they won't let just regular people speak at Oxford. They have to have somebody who actually knows what they're talking about. They want you to get into that space. They want you to get into that conversation. So if you're going there, whether you're new to this, whether you know about it, if you see people going to it, keep an eye on it. I don't think it's going to go away. There's too much invested. There's been too much energy and time invested in these communities, in these approaches, these discussions. There's been too much there. And to have an individual like Terrence Howard go on a stage, largely one of the biggest stages in the whole world, the Joe Rogan podcast, to go on there, these perspectives are being activated for a reason. And they don't exist in a vacuum. They are very much connected and attached to other storylines. These are those other storylines. I'm speaking from experience. That information is very much attached to the History Channel's Ancient Aliens, the New Age communities, channelers, and everything that's centered on and circled around this New Age extraterrestrial simulation technology-based agenda. And everything that comes along with the big programs that they've been pushing for years, like the CERN program, HARP, they're all connected in some kind of way. They want you to talk about certain things and don't want you to address other things. Investigate, look at, and research both. Look at what they want you to talk about, look at what they don't want you to talk about, and come back and see how you feel on your own at the end. If I'm wrong, that's fine. I can be wrong. But if they're wrong, that's a different discussion, because there are a lot of people investing their time, their energy, their lives, their livelihood into what they are saying is the end all be all. And that's a loop. And if they're sucking people into these loops, that's dangerous and people need to be warned. This is a warning. This is also a challenge to confirm this information for yourself. It is very relevant and will be very much a part of the discussion in the future.